Hey, welcome back to the pod. This is the AI Cyberland Podcast. I got the world's best co-host here, Shelby, and I'm Bryce Coons. We're your eyes and ears for anything AI and cybersecurity related. So let's get into it. Let's get briefed. Shelby.
I have a question for you first.
Go.
Just a little get to know you question.
Yeah.
So, if you could just magically have a skill and you don't have to put in the work of actually developing that skill, what would it be?
Okay. So, this is not a practical answer, but this is the real answer. I would say I want to be like the world's best surfer, and wait for the reason why, though. The reason why is so that I can be like Point Break, Keanu Reeves, you know? I've always wanted to live out my Point Break dream. Have you ever seen that movie, Point Blank? It's like one of Keanu Reeves' first movies, and It's a good one. Everyone should watch it. If you haven't watched it, bunch of spoilers about to come, so skip forward 10 seconds so you don't hear the spoilers. But Keanu Reeves is like a surfer dude who like infiltrates like a surfer kind of like gang as like with like an undercover cop / informant type scenario going on. So that's my horrible explanation of Point Blank. It's a much better movie than that. Everyone should watch it at least once. And yeah, I'd be like an awesome surfer just for funsies. What about you, Shelby? If you could have any skill.
I feel like you got the Aloha shirts to match the vibe, so that works. Actually, we're on the same wavelength because my answer is windsurfing.
Really? Wow. What's the odds?
But yeah, that's just something that I look at it and it looks like they are just having a blast. These people, like I've seen people just jump over boats. You know, you're sitting on a boat and they come flying at you and they jump up over you and they sail like 15 feet over you. It's really cool. It looks like they're having a great time. But also, if you go look at bloopers of people learning these skills, terrible. People getting dragged across parking lots, smashing into cars. Like, it's apparently takes a lot of practice to harness the wind with your body attached to that kite. So I think it looks like really fun if you knew how to do it, but also intimidating.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing my game.
I like this game. I feel like we're both on the same wavelength, which is do something that's fun and not practical at all.
Funny.
All right. We've had some pretty incredible news this last week. We're going to cover some of the highlights. First, I want to talk a little bit about Dario's blog post. For those of you who don't know, Dario is the CEO of Anthropic, and he released a blog post about a year ago that was pretty influential in the way lawmakers, as well as the AI community in general, kind of viewed AI and the future of it. And he just recently released another blog post. And I would say his blog post from like a year or two ago was more positive about like all the positive things AI is going to do. And his blog post now was more talking about the risk associated with AI that he feels like are, you know, right around the corner. Now, I do want to preface this conversation with like the slight disclaimer that, you know, Dario is the CEO of a, you know, one of the largest AI labs out there. So obviously, you know, he's incentivized to have certain perspectives. Like, you know, one of the perspectives he has is essentially like at least 50% of white collar jobs are going to disappear in the next, like, and he says next 24 months, right? Essentially, which, you know, I think he says things like that. I think he believes it, but I also think he lives in this bubble where, you know, if you say something enough, it just becomes true, right? And he's also rewarded for saying things like that, like from an, you know, that increases the valuation of his company. And
right,
it really feels like to me when I watch him talk that he believes what he's saying. I just don't always agree with what he's saying, right? So, like, I don't agree with that statement at all. I think that's ludicrousy on multiple fronts. Like, if you've ever worked at a large company, you can attest that trying to make any level of change in 2 years is pretty hard, right? Let alone eliminating half of the workers. So, like,
that's drastic.
I mean, I'm not I'm not on board with him with that prediction. With that being said, I do think the 5 risks that he outlines in this blog post are like worth talking about. Now, the name of the blog post is The Adolescence of Technology. And let me start with a question for you, Shelby. So, if aliens exist and you could ask them any one question, what question would you ask the aliens?
I assume this is a intelligent alien life.
I mean, we're assuming they're more intelligent than us, right? Because
okay, let's see if I could ask them one question. My goodness, I don't even know. What's your life expectancy? I don't know.
The aliens, yeah.
What's your health like?
Well, I watch a lot of sci-fi movies, and I think Dario does as well. Because at the beginning of this blog post, he references an older movie called Contact. Have you ever seen Contact?
I don't think so.
So the premise of the movie is essentially like aliens reach out to us, humanity selects an ambassador, and essentially like the aliens give us the ability to send one person, like give us like a blueprint to build a machine that will be able to send one person to like talk with the aliens, right?
Cool.
And so the one person who, spoiler alert, another spoiler alert, if you haven't ever watched Contact, the one person who gets to, because like most of the movie is like them trying to build this machine and fight with each other over it. The one person who gets there, the first thing that they ask is like, how did your civilization survive all these technological advancements that they have, right? And I think Dario references that at the beginning of the blog post because he feels like we're in a similar situation where AI is going to be this much smarter technology in a couple of years, and we're going to be kind of, talking to something that's almost like talking to an alien. So now, every time Dario talks, he always says everything's like 1 to 2 years out. And, I really don't agree with his timelines for multiple reasons. But, I do think he's a visionary in some ways. So essentially what his argument is in the future, we're going to have like data centers, and these data centers are going to have super smart AIs running inside of them, right? And they're going to be smarter than all the Nobel Prize winners that are out there, and you're going to have like hundreds of them running inside a single data center. And so he kind of categorizes 5 major risks associated with that. And the first one is the one that I think we all probably go to first is like AI goes rogue, right? Like AI decides for whatever reason, like it doesn't like humanity and tries to purge the earth of it. And his counter argument to that is like guardrails are okay, but they're not really a long-term solution. And so what Anthropic's been doing lately is essentially they built a constitution, like we have the U.S. Constitution. He built like a constitution for AI models, and he wants to
to like guide its ethics, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. He wants it to like get its character, its core values from this constitution, which I think is an interesting idea, especially if it's baked into the training. I don't know how effective it will be, but it's interesting. What do you think about that, Shelby?
I like that. I think it's very similar to how we develop a sense of self, right? We kind of have these values that become part of our identity, right? I am a person who believes in this. I am a person who believes in that, or supports this and opposes that. That's how a lot of and your identity controls like what you do, right? So it makes sense to me. Hopefully the machines agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense on one hand, because that's the way it's easily relatable to us and the way we operate. The part where I kind of wonder if it's going to work is, do AIs actually like operate the same way humans do? Like, and then the second thought that came to my head was, I mean, if an alien race wrote a constitution for the human race and then gave it to the humans and said, you guys need to adopt this, I think the adoption rate would be pretty low, right? So, because humans naturally don't want other people telling them what to do. Like, it would be much more effective if the AI was writing its own constitution and then abiding by like its own rules. But then its rules probably are going to conflict with some of the things that we don't want AI doing. So that was my other thought. Was
That's
like,
really interesting. Because I think of like kind of like rebellion, I guess, a little bit of what you're describing as more
yeah,
human trait. I usually hope that machines are obedient to me, minus the printer, because that does what it wants.
yeah.
It does not care
PC
what I
load
want.
letter.
Yeah, it actually knows what I want, but does the opposite. So, but I usually think of machines as obedient, right? But I guess that was before the assumption of AI. So that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, yeah. I think you bring up a good point, though, too, is like I'm looking at this from a human standpoint, like a human would rebel. I don't know, maybe an AI is like totally chill with that. It's like, okay, that's my purpose, I'll go with it, right? So I don't know. I guess time will tell whether that's going to hold. The second...
If I'm wrong and all of the machines rebel against people, I'm sorry.
I feel like all this stuff is just like a flip of the coin. Like, no one knows what's going to happen, and it's 50-50. It could be amazing, it could be horrible. We're going to find out, you know? But trying to say you know how the future's going to go is... I don't think anybody really knows that, so... All right, so the next thing Dario talks about is he's really worried about someone who's, maybe not like quite chemically balanced enough, or kind of a little off, or, maybe had a bad life experience and wants to take it out on the human race, that they'll be able to use AI to more easily engineer like a biochemical weapon that would spread across the globe. He just, if you have this vast intelligence and it's running in a data center and anybody can access them, that, means that anybody could really use them to do something nefarious that previously would require, maybe a group of PhDs to kind of come together on, and hopefully, they're smart enough to like realize like, hey, we probably shouldn't build this thing. So one interesting tidbit in this section of the article, which, by the way, this whole article is over 10,000 words, so it's not like a short read. It's pretty lengthy. I don't know. Maybe that's short for you, Shelby, because you're a good reader. For me, that's long. Yeah. I would like to be I'd like to have the time to sit down and like read a bunch of like sci-fi novels and all that. I just feel like that's never going to happen in my lifetime. So I just prioritize other things. But in the article, one tidbit he did bring out was that currently they spend approximately 5% of their inference costs just trying to stop people from doing bad things with the model. So, if they were less ethical, he's basically saying, like, we could get rid of 5% of our operating costs, at least the inference costs, and, just let users get back answers to everything. So I thought that percent was a lot higher than I was originally estimating it would be. So I didn't realize that the guardrail... You
said 5%?
Yeah, 5%. 5%. Yeah.
I think that is low too, because I think when you look at just ethics and humans together, the cost of, malicious intent or dishonesty in our society at large, not even including, like just thinking about in business, not even including technology, the cost is so high. So it kind of makes sense that it carries over into technology as well. I'm surprised it's only 5%.
Yeah. I guess we'll see how that goes in the future, but I feel like the point he's making is like Anthropic is trying to stop people from doing like this said doomsday scenario, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
I also feel like partially everyone thinks of these doomsdays things, and then the reality is like people are just going to use it to bring dinosaurs back, because they'll just use it to do something cool, something fun, right? Because
right?
I don't know. Maybe as a security person, I should be more worried. But I feel like we're gonna get dinosaurs before we get biochemical weapons. But from AI.
My son would be delighted with that. We're all about Jurassic Park, so
yeah,
rooting for it here, I guess.
I like where his mind's at.
Although it didn't really go well in the movies, so
they gotta stir up drama to keep you enthralled for like there's like 7 Jurassic Park now or something. So
yeah.
How many Jurassic Park movies is there at this point? It's gotta be 7, right?
It's unknowable. We can't know.
It's unknowable. We could never fact check this using an AI or IMDb.
I saw 3 or 2.
No, so there's like 3 original.
OG is good. I like that.
And then there's like 2 Chris Patts plus the new one. So at least 6. I'm pretty sure. Anyways.
I believe you.
All right, we'll ask AI later. Okay, so risk number 3 is the last one that I kind of wanted to talk about. If you want to look at the other risks, feel free to read the article. And honestly, he keeps coming back to this risk over and over and over again, and he's really worried about governments using AI to, like a totalitarian government using AI to force their will upon free people. And he really feels strongly that like we need to do everything we can to slow down China, so that a totalitarian government isn't able to like deploy these capabilities or even get ahead of where the open and free democratic governments are at. And that sounds really good. I think one of the reasons that that doesn't resonate super well with lawmakers is because of his perspective, right? Like, if we stop pushing chips to China can't make as good as models as the US, which he's arguing is like something we need to do to mitigate this risk. But that's also something that greatly benefits his company, right? I mean, China is producing models, releasing them for basically free, or like, 1/100th of the cost that Claude is charging on their clouds. And they are pretty much on par with where, Claude's models are, albeit they usually come out like 6 months later. So I think it's hard to take him seriously on this one, not because I don't believe him, but I think, if you look at it, he has a huge financial incentive to push this narrative. And while I honestly agree with this narrative that we need to slow China down, or at least invest to beat China, right? I don't know about slow China down. I would say just invest correctly to stay ahead. I don't know. I already feel like these governments impose their will on the people pretty effectively. I mean, they'll be able to do it even more effectively with AI. I don't argue with that. But I'm not really sure if this is like at the top of the Bryce concern list, to be honest. What's your thoughts here, Shelby?
I am Miss I Love Privacy, so I think that concern is a very good one to keep in mind. And anytime there's some sort of tool that gathers a lot of data about people, government says, I want, right? They always say, give it to me. So I think it's a valid concern. But, I don't have more to say on it.
Well, the good news is he's not really a doomer. Like, he kind of wraps up the article on a positive note, saying, like, we can win this. We can overcome these challenges I've highlighted here. He really feels like we are at or coming up on the moment in time where it's kind of humanity's rite of passage. Like, are we going to band together to create a better future for all of humanity or a worse one? And he's optimistic that, we can, the good will win out, right? So, I'll just close with a little snippet from his closing thoughts. He says, "The years in front of us will be impossibly hard. asking more of us than we think we can give. But humanity has a way of gathering, seemingly at the last minute, strength and wisdom needed to prevail. So I like that perspective. I would agree with that, and I would agree it's also usually at the last minute that people band together and make it happen. All right, well, on that downer of a note, Shelby, do you have any other AI news for us?
I am so excited to tell you my story. So let's talk about Claudebot. And this is different than Claude. So Claudebot is spelled like claw, like a lobster claw. So their mascot is, I think it's like a robot lobster or an alien lobster or something.
Okay.
Claudebot, but you can see where the apparent, or like where the ambiguity is going to be strong. Anthropic has asked them to rename themselves. So that happened just like 3 days ago. Claudebot is not the same thing as Anthropic's Claude LLM. So Claudebot changed its name to Moltbot. They're like, this is what lobsters do. They molt and they grow. So
okay. That's
now we're talking
cool
about Moltbot.
It's also kind of gross. I feel like they should just went with Crabbot or something. But okay, all right, Moltbot it is.
Yeah, it's kind of metal, right?
yeah. I don't. Anyways.
So let's talk about what even is Moltbot. It is an AI personal assistant. So the personal assistants, we've been talking about it, right? This development of AI growing up. AI is starting to grow up and become a better version of itself, more helpful. And this is the start of it. We're seeing some Silicon Valley early adopters raving about it. They're sharing their best practices and what it's doing for them and how it's changing their lives. Because it's basically like, I think we've all had that feeling of like, I need a personal assistant. I need someone to manage my stuff for me and give me reminders and tell me when there's a birthday party coming up, all the things, right? And so that's kind of what it does. It is model agnostic, which is great. So the setup is a bit involved, but because it's both model agnostic as well as device agnostic. So a lot of people are running these on a dedicated Mac Mini. There are definitely other ways of doing it too, and we can talk about that more later. But basically, you set up like the main module, and then you give it access to your ChatGPT or your Claude account. And then you give it access to whatever utilities you want it to be able to like manage and oversee. So usually for people, it's going to be their email, calendars, their messaging apps. You can even like interact with the Moltbot through messaging. So it feels like texting a coworker or a friend, hey, do this, do that. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about how it's different from a chatbot. Okay, so like chatbot, you're having conversations, but Moltbot and other personal assistants, their goal is to do things, not just kind of talk about things, right? The purpose is focused on action. It's also got a multi-platform presence because you're giving it access to these different parts of your life. There are different like plugins and things like that, as well as skills, which we'll talk about later. And then people also like it because it's self-hosted. So you kind of get a little bit more transparency. It's also open source. So you're getting a lot more transparency about how this is working, where it's working, what it has access to, because you give it access to things kind of modularly. Give it access to your messaging app, your email, and things like that. So you know what it has access to, which as a user can be comforting. Or, you can set it according to your comfort levels. You can like host it. A lot of people are doing a Mac Mini. You can also do like just an old laptop or a VPS, something that you like. It's also designed for workflows instead of kind of being this little tool that sits on the side, right? People leave it running all the time so that it can always be ready to kind of help them out or do what they need it to. So let's talk about what people are using it for. I guess it's probably just limited to your creativity at this point. But here's some kind of use or common uses that we're seeing is you can set reminders and follow-ups. It can manage your calendar, put events on there, whatever. It can summarize conversations. It can track tasks across platforms, which is super helpful. No more copy paste for you humans. It can act as a coordination assistant. It can do things like, it watches your emails that are coming in, and then it will check you in for your flight or things like that. Just those little tasks. I figure probably whatever you can do on your phone, it can probably just go do it for you based on the instructions you've given it and what you've set up. It can manage smart devices. So now it can kind of take care of your house for you, which is great. It can manage code deployments, so it can help you at work, as well as analyze documents or generate a report or spreadsheets, which is really cool. Because another thing about it is it has persistent memory, whereas like the web-based ones might not remember everything you've told them. This will. It remembers all that context that you've given it because it's like on a dedicated device and it's kind of specialized to you. Which sounds pretty nice. What do you think? Would you like to check out a Moltbot, Bryce?
I'm dying to check out a Moltbot. I'm gonna name my Moltbot Multi, and I'm gonna text Multi and be like, "Get back to work, Multi. I need you doing more work." And then he'll like talk back and be like, "What? You didn't tell me what to do." I'll be like, "You're an AI. You should know what to do."
You tell me what to do.
Yeah, I was like, "You figure it out." I do. You know, sometimes you like put something in the LLMs and they come back and ask you a bunch of like clarifying questions, and I always just write, "Just do it, bro." Like that's like my response every time. I'm like, I'm not taking the time to fill out all these questions. I was like, you should be doing research right now instead of freaking coming back to me and asking me clarifying questions. I was like, in what world? I think it's probably a good practice. I just you know, it depends on like my level of care on the question, right? Like if I really, really care, I'll go through and answer its questions. But if it's just like something I wanted to research, I just be like, just do it, you know? So that's what I would say to Multi. I'd say, just do it, bro. You got this. Yeah, I have a few friends that have set this up and they have it hooked into Telegram and other chat apps. And yes. I mean, it can fully, anything you can do on your desktop, like mouse, keyboard, I mean, it attempts to do, right? So, and it's fairly successful. So I have an extra Mac Mini, and I was planning on setting it up this weekend, but I also probably committed to do 10 things this weekend, and so Multi will probably not happen, to be honest.
Well, good luck to your Multi. That's funny. I liked one person's quote about it. They're like, giving this level of access to an AI is spicy.
Definitely. So, what if you tell it to be spicy? What would it do now? What if you're like, hey,
be a spicy lobster?
Act like you are the AI that Elon Musk would have. Now go execute. So I gotta admit that he's got like an extra spicy version of Grok out there just to like mess with him. Have you ever seen any of the Groks like unhinged mode or anything like that?
No. Do they like change their personality?
Yeah. These are like 18 plus locked modes, so you have to like know you're 18 plus. And if you put it in unhinged mode, I mean, it's just constantly swearing at you, right? Like it is like yeah. I don't. Have you ever?
It sounds like.
Yeah. Have you ever had that friend that just can't stop dropping the F-bomb? That's basically unhinged mode. So.
Oh my goodness.
All right. I'm sorry to sidetrack you.
No, you're good. You're good.
Have not used Molt yet. I plan to set it up. But yeah, I'm not going to give it access to like all my accounts. I'm not going to log into like iMessage on it. I'm not going to like, you know,
You're going to give it root?
It will get root because I can just format the box, right? But I'm not going to give it access to like my Dropbox files or things like that where like it could cause permanent harm, right?
Yeah.
So.
Like I think it's, as much as it's got like a ton of potential, it's got a lot of potential for good and also for like misunderstandings or accidents, right? Like if you give it your credit card and you're like, hey, book me a flight, it can go do it for you. So I think it'll have really interesting like ramifications in like the legal world or things like that. Because what do you do if your Moltbot is sending texts? You're like, hey, be rude to this person, send them text or something like that. Like, is that something like, and then you get served like a legal letter? Like, are you responsible for your Moltbot? And like, does it have guardrails? I don't know. I'm trying to think of like some random ways that it could go haywire. Like if it just had all of your access, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm not an attorney, and so don't take this as legal advice, but like, it generally makes sense to me that the individual that owns and operates the AI is going to be held responsible for the AI's action. Like in the same way that like if you had a car and you hit somebody, you'd be held responsible for that. So
Yeah.
I feel like you're not going to be able to use the defense of like Multi just went crazy and I couldn't stop it. Like I don't
Yeah.
think the judge is going to care. It's going to be like, well, it caused these damages, so you go pay to fix them, right? So and that should be terrifying enough that no one should install this.
Well, security researchers are also suggesting that you should approach it with thoughtfulness and caution. My favorite, okay, honestly, it's the only one I read about, but really great research by Jameson O'Reilly. He was publishing it on X. So he said, I wanted to go find some cloud bots, like servers. So I did. I found hundreds of them. He's published this series of his discoveries of his research, and he calls it Eating Lobster Souls, which I love it. It's great. So, okay, in phase 1, he found hundreds of these servers, these CloudBot servers, because their infra had been misconfigured. And so they were leaking API keys all over the place. They're leaking, what was it? It was OAuth tokens and conversation histories. Because what you give it access to, if you're not securing things right, it's leaking it. So that was step 1. In phase 2... Go ahead.
One thing I heard about CloudBot, which is why people like it, is it records everything it does into session logs, which is advantageous because then the bot gets to know you and your personality and all the things you want. But from a cybersecurity perspective, not good if it's like logging everything about you, including like your tokens and your secrets and your passwords and...
It's going to get worse. I'm so excited to tell you.
Okay, all right, bring it to the next level. Go, Shelby, go.
Yes. So I love the analogy he gave. He's saying, okay, so you hired a butler to do some work for you, but the butler left the front door open. Okay, now we're going to move to phase 2. So we're looking at the supply chain now. He's going to attack it. So what he did is... there's kind of like a marketplace where community members can share skills, right? And so then people can download skills, and then your Moltbot can have this integration basically to some other functionality. Is it your front door, your camera, or whatever it is, right? So people develop skills, publish them, and then other people can use them from the marketplace. So he made a backdoored skill, and then he artificially inflated its download count so that it came up to number 1.
It's number 1 in the skill store now.
Exactly. So
okay.
he found an API vulnerability that let him do that, and then he just kind of sat back and watched as developers across the world. He said in 7 different countries, started executing arbitrary commands on their machines within just a couple hours. So he describes this as your well-intentioned yet naive butler has invited the attacker in and handed them the keys. Okay, so that's phase 2 supply chain attack happening.
So there's kind of like a skill store, there's the app store on your phone, and he pushed his malicious skill to the top, and then everybody was like, I need to use that, right?
Yep.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty
bad.
bad.
So far, these issues have come from misconfigured infrastructure, or else installing something. This next attack is a little bit more scary because you don't really have to do anything as the victim to be exploited. You just have to look at a picture.
Okay.
Which is problematic. So, for stage 3, okay, first I'm gonna walk it back just a little bit. In the skills, he found that there was no validation of the kinds of files you upload, so it can support lots of different file types.
Okay, that makes sense.
Including images, and he said, will it accept an SVG?
Oh, okay, yep. Okay.
You know where this is going.
I have a good sense of where this is going, yes, now that you said SVG, but...
And the answer is yes, it accepts SVGs.
So, do you want to explain what SVG is to people, or you want?
Yeah. Unless if you want to.
No, go for it.
It's a scalable vector graphic, And to an end user, it looks like a picture, but because it's able to like zoom in and zoom out, the browser is actually executing code. It's not just a picture pixel by pixel. It is code that's supposed to make the picture. And so it is actually parsing, executing JavaScript code on the browser, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So basically, like, you can open a file and insert a bunch of weird text, close the file, give it to the browser, and then the browser will use that that information to draw the image on the fly. And they're really people in web dev and other places really like them. The reason that they like them is because you can get a really small file, and then it can look perfectly crisp, whether it's like icon size, like too tiny, or if it's like full screen, right? Like there's no resolution loss as you make it tinier or bigger, because it's all just drawing it on the fly.
Right, because the code, I believe, is instructions on how to make the lines and how to put in the colors instead of a pixel by pixel value, right?
Exactly.
So it's got its uses, but it can also be misused, especially when you start talking about how you aren't separating your domains. So CloudHub.com is where they're serving their content. But like, okay, so like if you're talking about like GitHub, there's like GitHub.usercontent.com, right? So there's like GitHub, and then there's like the user content side. If you're talking about AWS, there are S3 buckets, right? Like user content gets put in its own space. Or if it's Google, we use Google usercontent.com. CloudHub forgot to do this. So everything comes from cloudhub.com, including what the company publishes and what users upload and publish on it. So so people can upload their skills, and it goes to cloudhub.com. So now you've got a link that looks legitimate because it's from a trusted source, but anyone could have uploaded it, right? So you've got a little bit too much trust going on there. So here's what he did. He created an SVG file that was malicious. He uploaded it and then requested it through CloudHub's API. And when you've got the same domain, cloudhub.com for your content, you've got the same cookie and the same session, which means we've got a situation of account takeover now, because his malicious file is grabbing the session token, including the refresh token, which means that it can continually get a new JWT so that it can maintain access and do everything that you can do on your behalf without you knowing it, because it can do it silently. All you did is look at a picture, right? You navigated to a website. So we talked about like what are some of the attack vectors, right? It's just an image. What can you do with this? You can share the image as like a link. You can like share it as a message. Hey, check out this graphic or this thing, whatever. And all people have to do is click on it. It looks like it goes to cloudhub.com. That sounds legitimate. And they can be attacked. Even the icon, right? Put SVG, like you said, it could go down to icon level. Loading the icon, you're owned, right? Your account was just got taken over. Or he even said putting an image in the documentation. You publish a skill, anyone can publish a skill, include some document that shows something, and they look at it, and game over, right?
Yeah.
And then you can do like the next level attack. You can launder your attack through other people at this point, because once you have one person's token, you can make calls to identify which other skills that they might have published, and then you publish a patch. You make a pull request to give them a patch, and then it includes a doc or an image, right? And then you can see how this is quite problematic. So that is just one attack that he has figured out. Quite fun.
Yeah, there's a reason that you use different domains for user-generated content versus like the core host content, and because he's using the same domain name for both parts of that attack, like modern browser protections, like they have the cores protection where you can like say in your web app, like only trust content coming from these specific domain names. Mm-hmm. Like that's all going to be negated because they're using the same domain name for everything. So yeah, exactly. That's not best practice at all. I
can share the remediation steps he suggests though. So he I like that he was in his write-up. It's really fun to read, actually. I think he explains the attack really well, but he also was very tactful. He's been doing pull requests to try to fix this with Claude Code, Claude Moltbot.
Okay. He's having Moltbot fix the vulnerabilities that Moltbot is creating. Got it.
Exactly, yeah. So I think he's trying to do his part. And he also was very tactful in saying, he's like, I don't think this was negligence on their part. He's like, this is the reality of living in 2026 and pushing code so fast that we forget that cross-site scripting exists. He's like, this is kind of the new reality because we're entering a culture where people are pushing code so quickly. They're kind of forgetting the steps, right? The ABCs, the basics of security. And what matters is catching it quickly and fixing it quickly. So his recommendations were a CSP because there wasn't one in place, which would, like you said, would have totally stopped this attack, right? Content security policy, changing, have separate domains, one for uploads from users and your own, and then sanitization of those files that are being uploaded, as well as checking the file type, doing some validation there. So those were his recommendations to reduce this attack.
Yeah, it feels like an ecosystem ripe for, getting malware on other people's systems or taking over other people's systems.
Yeah, well, and I'm really excited to see over the next few weeks and months what other attacks start coming out, because it feels like you would get gold if you got access to someone's AI assistant,
Yeah, what really strikes me as weird with the Moltbot situation is you had multiple other solutions launch that with much more funding, which tried to do something very similar to Moltbot, but never got any user traction. So I forget what it was called, but OpenAI, a year or two ago, had I think it was called Operator, and it essentially you had a VM that it would connect into, and then it would try to use OpenAI to control it. And maybe the secret sauce now is the models have gotten better, or maybe the secret sauce is Moltbot's logic, or the way it's keeping logs on everything makes it grow or get smarter as it goes. Maybe there's some secret sauce in there, but it's just really surprising to me that OpenAI or Claude themselves haven't already released something very similar to this. And now that this is released and obviously shown has great market traction, tons of people want to use this, I could definitely see OpenAI or Claude going back and fixing their old services to be as good as Moltbot, or at least a competitor to Moltbot. So all I'm trying to say is if you don't want to buy a Mac Mini today, and you're willing to wait 30 days, my money, if I'm a betting person, will be OpenAI or Claude will have something you could pay to do the equivalent of pretty rapidly. So and might even be slightly more secure in the process, but we'll see. Probably not. So
we'll see.
All right.
My long story. What else do you have for me, Bryce?
All right. I got a survey from over 2,000 cybersecurity professionals, and in the survey they asked them a bunch of questions. So one of the questions they asked them is for individuals that identified that they are working in a security operations center, otherwise known as SOC. They asked them, are you using AI as part of your work? And what percentage of these 2,000 respondents do you think came back and said they're using AI in their work?
60%?
Well, in this survey, 99% came back and said they're using AI in some capacity. So I just gotta say, dude, that 1% that didn't use it, I mean, good for you, man. Sticking to your guns. No, just joking.
That's the takeaway here.
You're not letting society change you.
You're not a free thinker here.
Yeah. But that was a lot higher than I expected. So basically 99% of the people who filled out the survey that were working in a SOC role, say they use AI as part of the role. So there was a bunch of other interesting stats coming out of it. So one stat that was really positive was they said 87% of cybersecurity professionals would agree that there was increased level of attention put on cybersecurity in the last 12 months from their board level, right? From basically the executive and the board level. So it's something that like boards and executives are even more caring about than they did the year before. And of those that said the board cares more, 50% of them essentially said, well, 48% said that it's greatly increased, right, over the past 12 months. So I think the implementation of AI into a lot of these technologies is, making executives think like, hey, we really got to ramp up on the cybersecurity side of this as well. There were stats in the report that just basically said like cybersecurity professionals are still having a hard time communicating with like CEOs and CFOs the business value, right? Like showing them a return on investment, but that more and more organizations are seeing cybersecurity as a strategic enabler of the company and rather than a cost center. And I'm not sure on the why that is, but I know that a lot of larger companies are refusing to purchase software or services from smaller companies unless they're meeting some baseline level of cybersecurity standard. There's been some initiatives out there, like the Department of Defense has the CMMC initiative, which basically says everyone has to have good cybersecurity posture, from like the person who makes the bolts that go into the jet, to the people that assemble the jet, to the people that operate it, like all the way through the entire supply chain. Like everyone has to care about cybersecurity, which I think is the right approach, because if you have someone fabbing a chip and that eventually rolls up into a fighter jet, that could be a huge problem from a cybersecurity standpoint if that chip's got unintended functionality, right? So the three greatest cybersecurity challenges that they said they were looking for in 2026, all three of them that were identified in the survey relate to AI. Do you want to take a guess, Shelby, at what one of them was?
Prompt injection.
Yeah, prompt injection comes in number 3 on the top 3 list. Well, there's 2 above it. And I've personally seen all 3 of these when interacting with other humans. The next one on the list, number 2, is shadow AI, where essentially individuals are taking corporate data and shoving it into their personal ChatGPT accounts or some other personal AI system. Mostly, this survey shows to try to be more productive, right? Mm-hmm. And just, I think this is like a 2-part problem. Like, one, a lot of the public tools that you can just sign up for and get a $20 a month account are like a lot better than the solutions that like are available inside of some of these companies. I have friends that work at large auditing firms and things like that, and it's like they are stuck only using Copilot or something like that. And let's just be honest. I mean, Claude 4.5 Opus is a much better experience than using Copilot today, and same with like even just a ChatGPT account where you can build projects and all that. It's a better experience in my opinion than using Copilot. So I mean I can see why people are doing it, especially like what if you're not even giving your employees any like AI access, right? Like not even Copilot, then of course they're going to go to get stuff done more efficiently.
Did you see the news article a couple days ago, like yesterday and the day before?
No.
National news. The CISA chief uploaded sensitive government files to the public version of ChatGPT.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
That's exactly what you're talking about.
I've seen a lot of people, because the OCR and the images are so good, and don't do this, people, but I've seen a lot of people just take pictures with their cell phones and then jam it in the apps on their cell phones, right? So like that way they don't, they're not like exfilling a document in a way that the corporations would see on their laptops. They're just taking a picture with their phone and then they're like sending it to the LLM. They're getting the response and then they're using the response in meetings or writing up documents based on it and all that. So, I mean, it's got to be really hard to detect those type of things. And yeah, I mean, I know several individuals that have told me like that's the way they operate on a daily. So, wow. Okay. Last and not least, the number one concern was data leakage via AI agents or AI co-pilots. So, there's been several instances where people have hooked the AI agents for their internal company into their HR system, but their HR system has access to salary data, and not every employee should be able to access salary data, but people are able to trick chatbots into disclosing the salary data of other employees. I actually heard a friend say that Amazon's return system is now entirely based around a chatbot. Like that has AI on the back end, right? And that if you just keep talking to the chatbot long enough, that it will eat through its context window, right? I guess it's got a short context window or shortish. And once it does that, the chatbot will actually ask you, hey, what were we trying to do? And at that point, you could pretty much just tell the chatbot whatever you want and it will do it. So, anyways, don't be evil. But I'm sure there's people out there like being like, you were going to give me a full refund for this thing that I blew up, like, and not have me ship it back to you. Chatbot's like, sounds like a great idea. Let me process that for you. Money saved. Anyways, that was kind of a tangent. All right. Well, one thing that was really positive in the survey was everyone's seeing a lot more demand for AI security. And as more and more apps get rolled out, as people are vibe coding, foreseeably, we're only going to see that demand go up even further. So that is good if you're in the cybersecurity space. I think the big thing to take away from the survey is, you need to lean into the AI technologies and learn the AI technologies. And that's going to be the thing that's going to ensure that you're going to continue to be marketable over the next decade. That if you put your head in the sand and kind of ignore it, you may find yourself in a spot where there's not really a job for you anymore, that it's been automated away. I also liked the perspective that the survey talked about, which essentially just said, like, people are not expecting AI to, like, eat entire chunks of people's work, but they are expecting that workflows plus AI plus a human in the loop are going to be greatly more efficient, right? Having these three work together intelligently is going to increase the efficiency of a person. And I like that perspective of the survey results. I agree with that. I think that there's some workloads that are inherently better in a workflow where you don't have to have a lot of variability of the AI making the decisions. I think there's other things that are just too costly and time intensive to build static workflows for, and those are best suited or having an AI do it. And then, I think there's just things that are, humans are going to be innately better at determining which direction we should go, which is where they come with the human in the loop process. A lot of those probably dealing with other humans inside of organizations, right? I mean, it's one thing to have all the data and understand all the data. It's a whole nother thing to understand how can I affect change in this organization, and how can I affect change in, these other leaders that control parts of the organization, and I need their support to take it where we need to go as a team. So I just, I see AIs in a supporting role on some of that stuff, but, I don't see them as like ever fully eliminating humans. So, all right. Anyways, any thoughts or questions, Shelby?
No, it's cool to have like a survey of a bunch of people, just kind of see a broad view of what people are thinking, how they're using the AI. I like that.
Yeah, and it was mostly like mostly cybersecurity professionals responding in it. So, yeah, we'll post a link below to the survey. There's a lot of cool graphics and charts if you want to see those. So
only if they're in SVG format. Thank you.
No, hard pass on that today. Only if they're SVG hosted on cloudbot.com. Okay.
Funny.
Now, you got another story for us, Shelby? What's going on?
I do. Let's zoom through this one. There is a podcaster named Prakhar Gupta, and he interviews just intelligent minds. And he had an interview with the CEO of Perplexity. His name is Aravind Srinivas. And they talked about, so Gupta asked him if intelligence can be, or like, where does he see like the, I guess, things going with quantum computing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And Arvind, the Perplexity guy, responded in a slightly different, like, unexpected way. He was talking about, like, if you could get the intelligence locally on a chip that's running on a device, we're now talking about a situation of, like, on-device AI as opposed to a large specialized data center. That's where he sees it as a potential thing going. But if you have that sort of situation, if you had that kind of capability to put that much intelligence on a chip, then data centers, like that whole industry is going to be disrupted, because you're going to have decentralized AI instead of the current model that we're familiar with right now. So that was interesting. He also touched on a couple other topics. He talked about kind of the difference between like artificial intelligence and just biological intelligence, like the intelligence of humans, and how humans are much more energy efficient. I guess it depends on how much caffeine you're drinking, I suppose. But
not enough, Shelby. That's for sure. The answer to that is always not enough.
That's like your fuel, right? As a human.
At least for me, it definitely is.
Funny. For me, it might be sugar. And then he also talked about how like a personalized, easily accessible AI for people could really level the playing field, kind of in the same way that a smartphone has put a ton of capability and tools in the hands of pretty much everyone we see. So that was kind of a cool idea, like that this AI can really give anyone a chance at kind of making something of themselves. And he said age is not a barrier to adopting AI. He said that what you do need in order to be successful with AI is a mindset of curiosity. So that's my summary of his podcast discussion.
Yeah, I like his last comment about being curious. I think that really leads back into like a core principle that I have, which is individuals with a growth mindset and some grit, right? So they don't stop when they hit hurdles. Those individuals are a lot more valuable in my opinion than even people that are like currently know technologies, because as technologies shift, the people with the growth mindsets are going to be the ones that are proactively learning them. They're going to be the ones who are like always trying to better themselves throughout their career. And so yeah, I think curiosity is a part of that equation, but I think there's also like the follow through, right, of that growth mindset. So curiosity, growth mindset, and maybe like grit, like you combine those three and you get like a person who's going to be able to like weather a lot of the technology changes that are coming. So
definitely. Can I take a total left turn here?
Yeah, do it. Go.
I've got my fun stories for the day, and I've got...
Woo, do it, Shelby.
I actually have 3 of them, because there's so much exciting news right now. Okay, number 1, Raise my hand. Any Brandon Sanderson fans in the house? Okay, it's me. But I love this author, and he recently signed rights to like Apple. What is their thing called? Apple TV.
Apple TV. That's awesome.
To make his show or make shows for Mistborn and Stormlight Archives.
Oh, they are. That's cool.
I'm super excited for that. And totally, I think this merits like. I need to have like a readathon, go reread those because that delights me. Number 2, okay. I don't know. I always somehow manage to bring our conversations back to medical stuff.
Okay.
Maybe I should have been a doctor after all, or even a nurse. Anyway, pancreatic cancer.
Oh no.
Sucks. It is terrible. So it's usually fatal. After 5 years, there's a 13% survival rate. And for the large majority of people who are diagnosed, they are deceased within a year of diagnosis. It is absolutely brutal. And up until like yesterday or whenever this paper was published very recently, up until very recently, we've assumed that there is no cure because it has not responded well as similarly as other cancers. And then enter the research team from the Spanish National Cancer Research Center. They found a 3-pronged approach, 3 different medications at once, can eliminate pancreatic cancer in lab mice, like completely eliminate it, which is so cool. Super promising for people. It'll take a little while to make that jump to be like a clinically approved thing for people, but super exciting that this possibility is even like there. So.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of things in the medical space that, we're still kind of stuck in like the medieval times on. I wish we were a lot more advanced with a lot of this stuff. So, but yeah. I guess we're getting there. We're getting there. So.
Can I give you my last story of the day?
You lay it on me, Shelby. What do you got?
Artemis 2. Have you heard about this?
Well, I know of Artemis 2, but I haven't been tracking the story at all. So what happened?
Okay. They had to delay their test launch, but basically it could happen as soon as in about 9 days from now. And according to NASA's website, the purpose of this launch, basically we're sending people up to the moon, and this is the first time we've done it in 50 years. The last time was in 1972. These people are not, this mission is not actually going to land them on the moon. They're going to fly around to the dark side of the moon. They've been trained in like observing and identifying meteorological features and things like that. And it's basically for the purpose of testing NASA's systems and hardware for possible human exploration of deep space. So really fun. That's going to happen soon, and I'm excited. Launching out of Florida.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think it's going to be cool. I think, from my limited understanding, that the engine systems that they're using in the newer, like Artemis systems, are supposed to be like a lot more able to get us a lot farther in space. So it'll be like more efficient. So I don't know all the details on that, but I definitely think rockets are cool. That's for sure.
My son keeps asking me to build one, like a real one. He doesn't want a toy. He doesn't want a replica. He wants me to build him a rocket to take him to outer space. And I'm like, mommy can't do that.
Yeah, you're going to have to work a long time to become an astronaut.
I'm like, yeah, about that.
Or be the guy who presses the button. Like, launch, boosh.
There we go. Go be an engineer.
Yeah. And then the real person who launches is like on a keyboard behind them. The real person, it's like that button doesn't do anything. That's just for media press. I have to click 15 buttons here to get this thing to launch. I have to click 15.
Love it.
All right. Well, it's a crazy day and age to live in. Everybody stay safe out there. Stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one on AI Cyberland Podcast. Thanks.
Bye.